in front of her hut, laughing and clapping their hands. I turned to look at Uzo. I turned to look at Uzo's hut to see if he would come to my aid, but he was not around to help me. I screamed for my father to help me, but he was just there sitting under the tree and drinking his palm wine, not minding me. Oh gods of our land, I need you. I need you to bring me back safely. I prayed in silence and left the compound. On my way, I prayed to the gods to bring Uzo my way, or Dike, whom I had not seen for 3 days, because I really needed them at the moment. When I got to the road that led to the fourth market at the boundary between my village and Amazi village, I stood there, hoping I would see someone going in the same direction as me, but there was none. I proceeded and was scared to my teeth. Halfway into the journey, I heard my name, and the voice sounded like Uzo's. I kept quiet and listened if I would hear it again, but I didn't. Then I remembered I was alone in the bush. Out of fear, I started running and didn't see the big log of wood in front of me. I fell down after hitting my right foot, injuring myself. I sat down there frightened, and then I remembered the song my mother had taught me to sing whenever I was afraid and alone. I sang the song melodiously while sitting in the log of wood. It was already getting dark, and I had given up on coming out of there alive. Suddenly, I heard my name again, but this time it wasn't just from one person. I heard it again, and then I stood up to hide behind a tree. Suddenly, I saw Uzo and 2 of his friends with cutlasses coming in the direction that I did, looking worried. At first, I thought they were familiar spirits, disguised to deceive me into falling into their traps. Ulama, I heard you singing. Where are you? Please say something, he said, almost crying. I was still skeptical about him, so I decided to ask him a question. If truly you are my brother, tell me the name of my friend and where we met. The name of your friend is Dike. You met him during the village dance competition a few weeks ago, he said confidently. Uzo, I shouted and ran to him crying. We hugged each other. His friends were happy, but also very alert because it was already dark. Uzo, we need to leave here now before the unwanted comes out. It's dangerous to be here for another minute, one of his friends said, and we left immediately. Instead of taking me home, they took me somewhere else. It was a small hut in an isolated area. What surprised me the most was when Dike came out of the hut. I ran to him quickly and stood in front of him. Where have you been? I've been to the river several times looking for you. I had a lot of things to tell you, I said anxiously. I've been busy, but I'm here now, he said and turned to Uzo. Bring the goat and do as we have planned. Uzo and his friends brought a goat and slaughtered it. They collected one of my wrapper and poured some of the goat's blood on it. What are you planning to do? I was curious to know what they had planned. Uzo will go home and inform your family that you have been killed by a wild animal. That way, your stepmother will leave you alone, he said while setting up the fire. Ulama, I'm so sorry. My mother has caused you so much pain, but it ends today, he said. I held his hand and told him how much I appreciated him for always defending and protecting me, even though he was my younger brother. Later that night, I prepared sweet soup, pepper soup with the goat meat that was killed, and we ate to our fill while we sat around. After we had finished eating, Uzo's friends retired to sleep, while Dike and I sat down to discuss. Uzo, how did you get to find out where I was? I questioned him, eager to know. Well, I was at the farm digging ridges when Dike came to me. At first, I was skeptical about who he was when I saw him, until he introduced himself to me as your friend. That was when I knew he was Dike, he explained. What made you think he was Dike? Was it because he said he was my friend? I asked jokingly. Of course, Olam. Apart from me, Dike is the only friend you have, he teased, and we all laughed, and then he continued. Dike told me that you were in trouble and needed my help, but he refused to tell me what was going on. So I ran home to ask for your whereabouts. Father and my mother refused to answer. It was Amara who told me where my mother had sent you to, after I had threatened her with my cutlass. He explained, obviously feeling bad for what his mother had done to me. I held his hand and told him not to feel bad, and that it wasn't his fault. Ulamma, Dike called my name. I knew what was coming, so I left to make preparations and also make plans for you. That was why I left for a few days. You should have at least said something to me before you left. You got me so worried. I thought something had happened to you. I lamented. Like I have told you earlier, the gods will take care of everything. This is what I was preparing, he said, pointing at the hut and its environment. And indeed, a lot of work was done here. I met Uzo on his way to look for you and instructed him to bring you here. And that was how we made a plan to lie to your family that a wild animal had eaten you up and that you are no more. I looked at both of them with tears in my eyes, and I couldn't thank them enough. I later left them and went into the hut to sleep because I was already very tired, but that was after I had preserved the remaining part of the goat meat. Very early the next morning, Uzo and his friends got ready to leave for home. Dike and I saw them off and gave them part of the meat I had roasted. I thanked them and asked them to be very careful, most especially Uzo, because he had refused to eat his mother's food, except I prepare and serve it to him myself, and his mother had noticed it. And so they left for the village while Dike and I went back to our hiding place. A few hours later, Uzo and his friends were already in the village and had gotten to my house. When they got to the compound, they saw my father and stepmother sitting outside under the tree, gisting and laughing while eating dried fish. Oh Uzo, you are back. Where is that good-for-nothing girl? I hope she comes back with what I sent her. Or else, she said, looking out for me. Or else what, mother? Tell me, or else what? Uzo shouted at the top of his voice. Or else you and father will beat and starve her again, right? Because that's what you are good at doing, he said and brought out the cloth that was stained with the blood from the goat. Well, this is it. He dropped the cloth on the floor and continued. This is what is remaining of Ulamma. We found this while searching everywhere for her in the bush, he said while shedding crocodile tears. It's true, we believe she had been eaten by a wild animal, one of his friends said. At first, everyone was quiet, including my stepmother, and Amara, who later came out of her hut after she heard Uzo shouting. Suddenly, my stepmother started shouting, attracting neighbors who came running to our compound to know what had happened. My father stood up from his seat without a word and was motionless, while some elder men gathered around him, asking what the problem was. Amara watched as her mother displayed fake emotion, and suddenly, she realized how wicked her mother was and wept bitterly out of guilt. Uzo, who was about to explain to the elders exactly what had happened, Uzo, who was about to explain to the elders exactly what he had told my father and mother. But my mother realized that she would be blamed if they found out she had sent me to the boundary, quickly rushed and gave the explanation. I asked Ulamma to go to the market and get me fresh onubu that I wanted to use to prepare soup, but she insisted on going to the bush to get it, which I objected. She went and didn't return home. Uzo went out to look for her since yesterday, only for him to return this morning with her clothes stained with blood, she explained with crocodile tears. Uzo and his friends stood there with mouths open, listening to the lies my stepmother had told the elders. Uzo wanted to say something, but he was stopped by one of his friends because it might spoil the plans. He looked and saw Amara crying bitterly and saw regret in her eyes when she turned to look at him. He got angry and left for his hut, while his friends went to their houses. The crowd started leaving one after the other until they were all gone. Amara was in her hut alone when her mother went to meet her, so that they would rejoice over what had happened to me. But what she met wasn't what she had expected. Mother, how could you be so wicked? Why did you send her to the boundary when you knew that she might not return? I know you never liked Ulama, but I didn't know it was up to this extent. Amara lashed out at her mother. But I did it all for you, my child. It was all for you. No, Nne, you did it for yourself. You instigated me to hate Ulamma for no reason. All she did was obey your every instruction. I never wanted to hurt her or to see her dead, but you killed her. Amara screamed at her mother and ran out of the hut. Amara ran straight to my father, who was sitting under the tree where he had received the news of my demise. She begged him to go and search for me by himself, that I might still be alive somewhere. Amara, you heard what your brother said. She has been eaten by a wild animal. You saw the clothes that he brought back. It was stained with blood. There is nothing I or anyone else can do about it. Ulamma is gone, he said with tears in his eyes. But father, why didn't you stop her from going? You should have asked mother not to send her there. Even when she pleaded for your help, you kept quiet and looked at her while she cried. What kind of father are you? Now I see why Uzo never agrees with you, she said in anger and left. My father was just there looking surprised at Amara's outburst. He had never seen her that way before. When does she suddenly care about what happens to Olam? He questioned himself. Uzo was in his hut, watching from his window and listening to everything that was happening. He saw how Amara approached my father, the things she said to him, and how my father had reacted. He was surprised at Amara and at the same time happy that Amara was not like their mother. Later in the evening, Amara went to Uzo's hut to talk to him. At first, she was scared that her brother might not want to see her or talk to her because she had not been nice to Ulamma, but she went ahead and decided to do all it takes to talk to her brother. Uzo, are you in? It's me, Amara. I want to talk to you. Please come out. Uzo was startled from his sleep by the knock on his wooden door. He stood up and asked who it was when he heard Amara's voice calling him. He went out of his hut and asked what she wanted. Yes, what do you want? As you can see, I am not in the mood to talk to anyone. Just leave and allow me rest, Uzo said, forging anger. He already had a clue what she wanted to see him, but pretended like he was still angry at her. Uzo, please. I know you are angry with me because I know how I treated Ulamma when she was alive. I am truly sorry. Nne made me do it. She made me treat Ulamma badly because she told me that Ulamma killed her own mother and that she would hurt me if I didn't treat her the way I did. I was naive and allowed my mother to lure me into hating my elder sister, she said, crying. I know it's too late, but I've realized my mistakes. That's why I've come to ask you for forgiveness. Uzo, I don't want to be enemies with my only brother. Please forgive me, Uzo, please, she begged while kneeling down and crying. All this while, Uzo was backing her, looking in another direction while he was listening to her. His heart broke when he turned to see his sister, kneeling down and crying, begging for forgiveness. Amara, please stand up. You don't have to kneel, Uzo said while pulling her up. I've always told you to be nice to her because she's our elder sister, even though we have different mothers. I know that mother was the one behind your bad attitude towards Ulamma. Anyways, I just hope you have learnt your lesson, Uzo said while he took the stool in front of his hut and sat down. I have learnt my lesson, Uzo, and I promise to be a better person from this day. Thank you, Uzo, for being a good brother to Ulamma when she was alive. At least she was loved by you, Amara said while drying her tears. It's all right. I am happy now. Would you like some fruit? Uzo asked Amara, and she was happy to say yes. She sat down outside with Uzo for a while and was about to leave when Uzo asked her about her preparation for the dancing competition. She said she was ready but might not compete because she wouldn't dance while mourning her sister. But Uzo, the dance is in 2 days. I think you should participate. Uzo tried to convince her. Don't worry about what people will say. I am with you. Okay, I have heard you, thank you, Amara said and left. The next day, Uzo went to see Ulamma at her hiding place and told her all that had happened and how it had affected Amara. Ulamma was shocked at what he had said about Amara's feeling of regret for all she did to her, and was also happy because it made her realize her mistakes. I am glad she's now a better person. But what about father? Ulamma asked Uzo. Father has not been out of his hut since last night. I bet he's also regretting how he treated you, Uzo said, shaking his head. Ulamma looked at him, held his hands and smiled. Don't worry, everything will be over soon. Ulamma, how's Dike? I've not seen him since I came. He left this morning and said he will be back soon. I'm still waiting for him. But Ulamma, who really is Dike? Uzo asked and was about to say another word when Dike interrupted. My name is Dike, and that's all you should know for now, he said while dropping a bag on Olam's lap and 2 bush meat on the floor. They were stunned because they didn't expect him at that moment. Ulamma stood up to welcome him, while Uzo shook his hand and was smiling. I was only curious to know the man who has been helping my sister. It's all right, Uzo. Tomorrow during the competition, you will know who I truly am, Dike said while shaking hands with Uzo. After spending some time with Ulamma and Dike, Uzo decided to go home, and he was given one of the bushmeat that Dike had brought. After Uzo had left, Ulamma went into her hut to check what was in the bag that Dike had given to her. She opened it and saw a very beautiful attire with beads of different colors. She was dumbfounded because she had never seen such beautiful attire in her life. She ran out of the hut to meet Dike, who was busy roasting the bushmeat outside the hut. How did you manage to get such beautiful attires and beads? They are so beautiful and must have cost you a fortune, she said with tears in her eyes. Don't worry about it. You will need it for tomorrow's occasion, he replied without taking his eyes off what he was doing. Ulamma appreciated him and went back into her hut, happy and grateful. Meanwhile, back in Ulamma's father's house, Amara was still nonchalant about the competition, as she was still mourning her sister. Amara Wam, I've brought beautiful attires and lovely beads for you. Take a look at them. I want you to use them for the occasion tomorrow. Her mother tried to cajole her. Even when I have decided not to partake in the competition, I'm never going to use whatever you bought for me, Amara said resentfully and left. Finally, the day every maiden had been waiting for was here. Every household was busy preparing their daughters for the competition. There was joy, happiness, excitement, and tension in the air. Mothers were busy cooking and pampering their daughters, while the men sat outside drinking palm wine and chatting. Amara was just sitting outside alone in their compound, thinking about how everything would have turned out when Uzo came in. Why are you sitting down here? Are you not supposed to be getting ready for tonight? It's almost night and the full moon will be out soon. Please stand up, let's go. Get you ready, Uzo urged Amara as he held her hand and took her to her hut. When they got to her hut, he brought out some beautiful attires he had bought for her because he knew that Amara had rejected the ones her mother had bought for her. Amara took it from him and became very happy. She brought out the beads she already had and selected the ones that she would use. Uzo left her hut to also get ready for the occasion. The full moon was out and everywhere was bubbling. Everyone was already at the village square, including the king of kings, his queen, and their son who would get married to the winner. Then the competition began after the announcement had been made. Beautiful maidens danced so well, one after the other, while the crown prince cheered on. The prince watched them as they danced to entice him, one after the other, but he wasn't satisfied with their performance. It got to Amara's turn and she danced very well. Her mother and her father were very happy and she danced more than the other maidens. The prince was a bit satisfied and was about to make a statement when suddenly they heard a beautiful melody. Someone was blowing a flute, and a beautiful maiden dressed in an expensive attire, adorned with beautiful beads on her legs, hands, waist and neck, walked majestically to the competition ground. Everyone was stunned to see such beauty in their midst. "I am here to participate in the competition," the maiden announced. The high priest wanted to question her but was asked to stop by the prince. "You may begin, beautiful maiden," the prince said, staring at her. The drummers started beating their drum and Ulamma started dancing. She danced so beautifully, no one had seen before. Even the king was mesmerized by her charisma. She danced to where the prince was and greeted him, while she rolled her waist so well to the rhythm of the drum. She danced where the family was sitting and greeted her father. Everyone was surprised why she did that. Finally, she danced so well that everyone stood up from their seats, clapping for her. "Who are you and whose daughter are you?" the prince asked, standing up. She paused for a few seconds before answering him. "My name is Ulamma. I am the daughter of Nana and Ulamma," I said, looking in my father's direction. "What?" my stepmother screamed. "That's impossible. You are dead," she said, pointing at me. Everyone started to murmur and talking to each other. My father stood up and walked up to me. Amara and Uzo also did the same. They stood in front of me looking surprised. Dike came and touched my father on his head with a white substance he was holding. Immediately, my father coughed out 3 cowries and almost fell down, but Uzo and Amara held him tight. "No!" my stepmother screamed and ran to where we were trying to stop Dike, but were stopped by Uzo's friend. "Ulamma, where have you been?" "I have been searching for you for some days now," my father said, looking around confused. "Ulamma, I'm sorry for treating you so bad. Please forgive me. I have realized my mistake," Amara begged with tears in her eyes. Ulamma hugged her and told her that she had forgiven her, and also hugged her father with tears in her eyes while smiling. "Father, we will talk better when we get home, but for now, let's win this competition," Ulamma said with confidence. The prince stood up and walked straight to Ulamma, held her hand and took her to his father. "Your Majesty, I have found my bride," he said, bowing his head while Ulamma knelt down. Everyone cheered while the King of Kings gave his royal blessings. Her stepmother was banished into the evil forest, while her mother's friend Mama Uka died after confessing to being a witch. Her father and her siblings Uzo and Amara lived happily together, while Ulamma left with the prince to their kingdom, and they lived happily ever after. Dike was sent by the gods from another village to help Ulamma. He left immediately he finished his assignment. The end.